Shalom Akim, Shalom. First and foremost, giving all praise, glory, and honor be to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakaha Kodash. Double honors to the beloved apostles and elders of Great Millstone, better known as GMS, Ruel. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, the tabernacle of David, beginning with the 144,000 and the rest of the men, women, and children out of the 12 tribes, whom Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai will have mercy upon in these last days. I'm your brother Matazabath from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Melbourne, Australia. And I wanted to share with you, Akim, a live I managed to record about 7 minutes into one of the beloved elders, Maya Yakiala, Alliance to 12 from GMS Chicago, who was sitting in on a live. And this Christian, Dave, comes up on a panel and pretty much uses Deuteronomy, the 29th chapter, to substantiate his claim that heathens were included under that first covenant. All right. So what I'm going to do is, because the video goes for 7 minutes, and I'm going to do the best I can to get through the full 7 minutes so you can hear what was discussed. In between playing the video, I will stop it and interject just to give some clarification and edification on certain points that he goes into. All right, and we're going to use this this recording, to edify the sheep. All right, so that if are in a situation with a Christian and they try to use these points to substantiate their claims, you know how to deal with it. All right. So without further ado, let's go.
Their sons who were left after them in the land, whom the sons of Israel were unable to devote for destruction. From them Solomon raised up forced laborers to this day, but Solomon did not make slaves of the sons of Israel. So the sons of Solomon's servants,
What nation were they from?
let's see, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites.
Okay.
Not only that,
So these are Canaanites.
hold on, let me finish.
Mhm.
Let's go to First Chronicles and let's find out, because you see, David had mighty men.
Okay, yeah, he had mighty men.
And guess what? They weren't all Israelites. So, for example, in
I
First
already know that.
Chronicles chapter 11, verse 39, you had Zelek the Ammonite. Of course, we all know Uriah the Hittite. And then in verse 46, Ithma the Moabite. So there you also had non-Israelites living in the land. And what's
All right, so let's deal with that. He said First Chronicles 11, which let's go to that real quick. All right, and he mentioned Zelek, the Ammonite, which is in verse 39. All right, so let's see if that's the case. First Chronicles 11 and 39, Zelak, the Ammonite, all right, and Naharah, the Berothite and arm bearer of Joab, the son of Zuriah, right? Now, when you look up, all right, Zelek, all right, it says here, Fisher, all right, an Ammonite and a warrior for David. So, this is the issue that Christians do. They'll read it verbatim and think that, oh, well, he had heathens because his nationality, they claim to be an Ammonite, but they don't understand. When you go into the Strong's definition, it clearly tells you he was an Israelite right there, an Israelite. Now you have to ask yourself, why was he called an Ammonite? Because back then, all right, just like today, give you an example. I'm originally, from Chicago. So me being from Chicago, all right, people who reside that were born in Chicago, they're called Chicagoans, right? So if you're going and visiting, a different state in the U.S., all right, or if, something happened to a group of people, let's just keep it simple. Let's say something happened to a group of people in Chicago. All right, they'll, depending on the severity of the situation, they'll classify them as Chicagoans. Right now, to prove what I'm saying, let's look it up. So Chicagoan, all right? It says an inhabitant of the U.S. city of Chicago, Illinois, right? So the same thing here for Zelek. He was an inhabitant, all right, of the land of Ammon. And to prove that, when you look up the word Ammonite, all right, outline biblical usage says Ammonite equals C, Ammon tribal. Now it says underneath either a descendant of Ammon and inhabitants of Ammon. All right, because you had Israelites that dwelt, okay, in those lands, man. Okay, let's see if we type it in. Let's see here. Let's see. Zelek, the Ammonite, was an Israelite. I'll just put a question mark. Now look at what AI says. No, Zelek was not an Israelite. He was a man from Ammon and an ancient people historically hostile to Israel. Zelek is listed in the Bible as one of David's mighty men, a group of elite warriors who served the Israelite king. Now they go off here because I'm going to show you that the mighty men were actually all Israelites. And when we went into the blue letter, see, this is why you have to learn how to double back and look up things, because in the actual blue letter, it tells you right here, he's an actual Israelite. But you see how Google lied, right? So let's see here. Zelek is explicitly identified as an Ammonite, a member of a people known to be enemies of Israelites, right? Now, I wonder if I go to chat, let me see here. Let me see. Let's see here. Let me do this real quick. Start up a new, hey, chat. In First Chronicles 11:39, Zelek aha, here it is. It says, good question. Let's look at the verse. First Chronicles 11:39. Zelek the Ammonite, Naharah the Berethite, the arm bearer of Joab the son of Zeruiah. It says Zelek is listed among David's mighty men. Now the detail that he is called the Ammonite has led to different understandings. They mentioned us, Great Millstone. According to GMS doctrine and scriptures, he was an Israelite by bloodline, but born in the land of Ammon. And that's absolutely correct. It says just like Uriah the Hittite, which he also mentioned in the video, wasn't literally a Hamite Hittite, but an Israelite living among them. This is why I said the phrase Chicagoan, which means an inhabitant of living in Chicago, Illinois, right? You have Israelites all across the 50 states in Babylon, the Great America. So wherever state they reside in, that they were, homeborn in, that's the, what they're going to be called. Like you have Mississippians, all right, so forth, right? It says Zelek was an Israelite who had dwelt in Ammonite territory. Israelites often carried by names tied to the regions they dwelt in. For an example, Elijah the Tishbite, 1 Kings 17:1, though Elijah was an Israelite. 2, he could not have been a natural heathen Ammonite. It says the Ammonites are of Lot's lineage, which is true. Genesis 19:38, the Lord said, an Ammonite and a Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of Yahweh. Deuteronomy 23:3, which is in the law. So that's how we know that Zelek was not in heathen. He was an actual Israelite. It goes on to say that law would prevent a natural born Ammonite from being one of David's mighty men in Israel's army. There you go. Especially one that's close in rank. So Dave he went off. He doesn't understand that you had Israelites living in those heathen lands, inhabiting them. So Ammonite was more about location, not lineage. That's right. He was an Israelite that came from the region of Ammon, hence the title Ammonite. And a lot of Christians don't even understand this. It says, example, parallel, Uriah the Hittite. 2 Samuel 11:3 was a righteous man and counted among David's forces, but he wasn't a natural Hittite, Hamite. He was an Israelite living in the Hittite territory. So in short, Zelek was an Israelite, not a heathen. His byname, the Ammonite, refers to where he dwelt, not his lineage. All right. And once again, we got the blue letter also backing us up through the Strongs, an Israelite. All right. So it's always good to cross-reference and double check things. Okay. So that's just one. All right. So that's 1 for us, 0 for Dave. Let's go.
What's really fascinating is when we go to First Chronicles 29.
Hold on, the argument
28.
wasn't that they weren't living in the land.
No, well, but no, it is because it was for him because when I went to Joel 1 and it says to all the people in the land, he said no, that wasn't to all the people in the land. But notice this. First Chronicles chapter 28. Let's see what David calls these people who are his mighty men, and yet some of them are non-Israelites. So in First Chronicles 28, verse 1, and David assembled at Jerusalem all the commanders of Israel, the commanders of the tribes, the commanders of the divisions that ministered to the king, the commanders of thousands and the commanders of hundreds, and the commanders over the property and livestock belonging to the king and his sons, and the officials and the mighty men, even all the mighty men of valor. So you got Israelites and non-Israelites there. Then King David rose to his feet and said, "Listen to me, my brothers and my people."
Let's stop right there. He just cut himself. Now let's go to that verse to show you how these Christians skip right over. See, they get on us Hebrew Israelites about reading in context, but yet I think Christians, and this is my personal opinion, I'm not speaking for no other brother. This is just my personal opinion for what I've seen and, folks out there under that Christian dogma that I've dealt with. It's like they have no comprehension skills whatsoever, right? But you'll see what I mean in just a second. Let's read it. First Chronicles 28:1. And David assembled all the princes of Israel. So establishing context, Dave. He assembled all the princes. Hebrew word for princes is shar, which also goes into chief, captain, officers, commanders, right? Of Israel. So it started with the Israelites. It says the princes of the tribes, Israelites, and the captains of the companies that minister to the king by course, Israelites, and the captains over the thousands and captains over the hundreds and the stewards over all the substance and possession of the king, Israelites, and of his sons with the officers, Israelites, and with the mighty men and with all the valiant men unto Jerusalem. These were Israelites. How can we prove that? All you got to do is just type in mighty men for an example. Now let's get the one in Joshua. Now when you read Joshua chapter 8, verse 3 right here, it says, so Joshua arose and all the people of war to go up against Ai. And Joshua chose out 30,000 mighty men of valor and sent them away by night. Those men were Israelites because he chose within their army. Remember, Israel had an army. Like, what are we talking about here, man? Another one, Joshua 10:7. So Joshua ascended from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him and all the mighty men of valor. Israel had their host of mighty men. Like, what is so hard why can't you comprehend that? Again, when he continued to read down to verse 2, then David the king stood up upon his feet and said, hear me, my brethren and my people. He was talking to the Israelites. This confirms it. Let's see if we can read it in the NLT. First Chronicles 28:1 in the NLT. David summoned all the officials of Israel to Jerusalem. the leaders of the tribes, the commanders of the armies, divisions, the other generals and captains, the overseers of the royalty property, the livestock, the palace officers or officials, Salakia, the mighty man, and all the other brave warriors in the kingdom. You honestly think that the heathens is going to be, come on, man. Like, you fuck, let me calm down, man, because you Christians are through. Anyway, verse 2, it says, David rose to his feet and said, my brothers and my people, it was my desire to build a temple where the ark of Yahweh's covenant, the Most High's footstool, could rest permanently. I made the necessary preparations for building it. He was talking to the children of Israel. You see? Like, what is that? There's nothing else to, at this point, you're bypassing what the scriptures are saying. This is why I said that my personal opinion, majority of you Christians, you have no comprehension skill set. You don't read to comprehend what's being said. So I love how David just threw in there. See, you had mixed, it was Israelites, and then you had, the other nations mixed in. No, they were not mixed in like that, man. But let's continue.
To build a house of rest for the ark of the covenant of Yahweh and for the footstool of his feet of our God.
Mm-hmm.
So that's non-Israelites having Yahweh as their God, being David's brothers.
They worship Yahweh because they was in our land. All right. If they didn't, they would have got plagued by Yahweh.
That doesn't change what I said. He was their God.
Be delivered.
They were David's brothers and people. Mm-hmm. So
no. And another tactic that they like to use, or not even that. This is what you can do, Akim. If that be the case, why didn't he go here to 2 Samuel, the 8th chapter? David's triumphs. And look, it gives you the precept in 1 Chronicles, the 18th chapter. When you go through this chapter, David took down all of the heathens. He put garrisons on them as well. You see? He took down all the heathens, man. So what are you talking about? The heathens were joined, as he said earlier, which you're about to hear him go into, saying that the heathens were under that covenant. All right. But just read this chapter when you have some free time, and then go to the precept they have here, 1 Chronicles, the 18th chapter. He took down all the heathens. This is why he had 40 years of peace under his rule, and then also under his son King Solomon's rule. Like, come on, man. What are we talking about?
You're saying non-Israelites receive the covenant? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, that's what Deuteronomy 29 says. Let's go back there and find out. Deuteronomy 29 explicitly says there's non-Israelites that receive the covenant.
Deuteronomy 29. Mm-hmm. You know you cutting yourself.
No, I'm not.
No.
Let's see. Verse 10. You stand today, all of you, before Yahweh your God, your heads, your tribes, your elders, your officers. Verse 10.
Read 1.
I know what 1 says, but then...
Okay, read 1 then. We started from the beginning. Read 1.
That's fine. These are the words of the covenant which Yahweh commanded Moses to cut with the sons of Israel in the land.
You can tell, it's Salakia, but I got to say it. He's calling on the wrong name. All right. The name it's not Yahweh, it's Yahweh. All right. When you go into the ancient Paleo Hebrew, you will discover that there was only 22 consonantal letters, and there's only 2 vowel sounds, which was ah and I. There was no E, there was no V, there was no J, there was no U. Okay? Look it up. Fact check it.
Moab, besides the covenant he had cut with them at Horeb. Yes, he cuts the covenant with them, but what else does he do?
Verse 2. Come on.
Okay. And Moses summoned all Israel and said to them, you have seen all that Yahweh did before your eyes in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh and all his servants and all his land. Yeah, Yeah, that's all true.
So who we talking to?
Well, he's talking to Israel, but doesn't mean he's only talking to Israel because watch.
Sir, you just read in verse 1.
Yes. Now, what does he?
Now, you,
What
you
does
didn't
he
let you didn't
go
let him
on?
finish reading.
Yeah,
Let
let
him
me
finish reading
finish.
what he started at.
So we have all. So verse 10: You stand today, all of you, before Yahweh your God, your heads, your tribes, your elders, your officers, even all the men of Israel. So there's all the men of Israel, your little ones, and your wives, and the sojourner who is within your camps, from the one who chops your wood to the one who draws your water, that you may enter into the covenant with Yahweh
You
your
said
God.
you may answer.
Yes, let's keep
You
reading. Let's
means
keep
a
reading.
personal
Right.
pronoun.
Let's
You. He
keep
didn't say
reading.
him.
Let's
Let him
keep
finish, Alex.
reading.
All
Let's
right.
keep reading. With Yahweh your God into this oath, which Yahweh your God is cutting with you today, in order
Okay.
that he may establish you today
Read
as
that
his.
over again, Dave. Read
Let's
that.
keep reading. That he may be your God, just as he spoke to you and as he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. This is the key part. Now, not with you alone am I cutting this covenant and this oath. So not with whoever the you is, it is not with that you alone. It's somebody else too. But both with those who stand here with us. Who's standing there with them today in the presence of Yahweh our God? Who's standing there that day?
The
Egyptian.
rest of 12 tribes of Israel.
Who else?
Just the rest of 12
Let's
tribes of
find out.
Israel.
Let's read it
He
again.
may not cover
All
anybody
the
else.
men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and the sojourner who is within your camp. So they're also standing there today, the sojourner. So it says, not with you only, but also with those who stand here with us today. Who stands there?
Now, let's prove him wrong because the scriptures clearly tells you, all right, which the elder brought out, Jeremiah 10 and 25. Let's get that first. All right. It says, pour out thy fury upon the heathen that know thee not. That's the key part. And how do the heathen know not the Most High? Because they were not under that first covenant. It says, and upon the families that call not on thy name, for they have eaten up Jacob and devoured him and consumed him and have made his habitation desolate. Now, if we jump to Amos, all right, chapter 3, it tells you, Amos 3 and 1, hear this word that Yahweh has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. And how did he know Jacob, which stands for the 12 tribes of Israel? Because he made a covenant only with them. That's why he said, only you have I known out of all the families of the earth. So what is Deuteronomy 29 chapter really talking about? Well, let's head right over there. All right. And you see, this is what these Christians do. Okay. They just add stuff. You're adding to the word, man. And the scriptures speak against adding to the word. Right. So Deuteronomy 29. Let me see. I think he read it in the let me see. Let me see. I think he read it in the NIV. Let's download that real quick. He either read it in the NIV or the ESV. Either way, we're going to get it. So I think he started at 10. We'll start at verse 10 in the KJV. It says, ye stand this day, all of you, before Yahweh, your power, your captains of your tribes, your elders, and your officers with all the men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and thy stranger that is in the camp, from the hewer of thy wood unto the drawer of thy water. Now, when we deal with this, let's look at that word stranger. All right. And it should be the Hebrew word gar, and it is. And when you deal with it, it says sojourner, a temporary inhabitant, a newcomer lacking inherited rights. This was speaking about Israelites, man. And how do we know it's speaking about Israelites? Because When you go back to the law in Leviticus, let's go Leviticus 25. Okay, our people, if they were down on their luck, all right, they were called sojourners or strangers, all right? The law of redemption. Leviticus 25:23, the land shall not be sold forever, for the land is mine, for ye are strangers and sojourners with me. Speaking about Israel, right? Now, let's read verse 25. If thy brother, fellow Israelite brother, be waxen poor and have sold away some of his possessions, and if any of his kin come to redeem it, then shall he redeem that which is his brother's soul. Hold on, let me get straight to the point. I got to go down a little bit more. Salakia. Okay, verse 35, of a poor countryman. And if thy brother be waxen poor and fallen in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him, yea, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee. Israelites were called sojourners. They were called strangers. When you go into that word stranger, okay, the same Hebrew word, gar. This is speaking about an Israelite. Just like when we broke the covenant, when you go Jeremiah, let me think for a minute. What is it? Jeremiah 11. We became, Jeremiah 11. We became a strange vine, or it might be Jeremiah 2. A strange vine to the Lord. Yeah, Jeremiah 2 and 21. Yet I planted thee a noble vine, talking about Israel, a holy, a right seed. How then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? We became strange unto Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. We were called strangers. That's why even when you jump to the New Testament, what did Peter call us? 1 Peter 1 and 1. It says, Peter, and an apostle of Yahushai Hamashiach, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, Bithynia, elect according to the foreknowledge of power, whose name is Yahweh the Father, through sanctification of the Spirit unto obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Yahushua Mashiach. Grace unto you and peace be multiplied. When you go and look up this word strangers in the Greek, all right, play this real quick.
Strong's G 3927. Parepidemas. Parepidemas.
All right, now it says one who comes from a foreign country into a city or land to reside there by the side of the natives, a stranger, sojourner in a strange place, a foreigner. In the New Testament, metaphor in reference to heaven as the native country, one who sojourns on earth. Now, to put this in a better perspective, you have to look up the very next word, which is scattered. Because when you look up scattered, then it'll put it in context of who those strangers was actually speaking about. Now, the word scatter here is diaspora. It says in the outline biblical usage, a scattering, dispersion of Israelites dispersed among foreign nations. So these Israelites were the ones that were called strangers. And remember, we read it in the law in Leviticus, the 25th chapter, that we were strangers in the land. Strong's definition, it says dispersion, especially and concretely the converted Israelite resident in Gentile countries. They were the ones that were scattered. They were also the ones that were called strangers. So this is who Peter, the head apostle back then, this is who he was writing to. This is who he was speaking of. Those Israelites that were scattered, James 1 and 1. To the 12 tribes which are scattered. Let's get that real quick. All right, what am I doing? James 1 and 1. It says, James, a servant of power and of the Lord Yahushua Hamashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. These same 12 tribes that are scattered, they were called strangers. You see? So when you deal with, let's go back to Deuteronomy 29. All right. And right around verse 11, let's read that in a different translation, see what else it says. NLT, it says, your little ones and your wives are with you, as well as the foreigners living among you who chop your wood and carry your water. AMP says your little ones, your wives, and a stranger, resident, alien, foreigner who is in your camps, from the one who chops and gathers your fire to the one who draws your water. Now, why? Because somebody may ask, well, okay, Matazabak, if you're saying that in Deuteronomy 29 and 11 verse, if that word stranger is indeed referring to an Israelite, why would an Israelite be chopping wood and gathering firewood? Well, go back to the law. Because when you go back to Leviticus 25, which we read it, the poor countryman, and let's read it. It says, and if thy brother be waxen poor and fallen in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him, yea, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee. Take thou no usury of him or increase, but fear thy power, that thy brother may live with thee. And thou shalt not give him thy money upon usury, nor lend him thy victuals for increase. I am Yahweh your power, which brought you forth out of the land of Egypt, to give you the land of Canaan, and to be your power. And if thy brother that dwelleth by thee be waxen poor and be sold unto thee, that's the part right there, thou shalt not compel him to serve as a bond servant, but as an hired servant. So you would have had Israelites that would have been, hired maybe to chop wood, to hew water, or whatever the case may be, right? Even when you go to Exodus 21, all right? Exodus 21:2, if thou buy an Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the seventh he shall go out free for nothing. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his masters have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her masters, and he shall go out by himself. So yes, you had Hebrew servants, right? Now, I want to look this up real quick. I want to type this in. Let's see what chat says. Deuteronomy 29:11 speaks about strangers. Let me see. Also, let me go back to it, because we have to qualify everything that we're saying, right? And also those who draw and water, chop wood. Would this be referring to Israelites who, according to Leviticus 25:35, were and hired as servants? Good question, brother. Let's go through this carefully, precept upon precept. Deuteronomy 29:10-12. Ye stand this day, all of you, before Yahweh your power, your captains of your tribes, your elders, and your officers, with all the men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, the stranger that is in thy camp, from the hewer of thy wood unto the drawer of thy water, that thou shouldest enter into the covenant with Yahweh thy power, and to his oath, which Yahweh thy power maketh with thee this day. Here we see all Israel's gathered along with the stranger in their camp, including even those servile positions. It says two possible understandings in GMS doctrine. Notice they keep bringing us out. Israelites in low estate, as you pointed out. Leviticus 25:35-39 explains that if an Israelite brother wax poor, he may be reduced to servitude among his brethren, but he is still an Israelite, not a heathen. These Israelites in servile positions could indeed be included in Deuteronomy 29:11, since the covenant covered all Israel regardless of rank or condition, from leaders down to servants. Strangers equals non-Israelite servants. Gibeonites case, the phrase hewer of wood and drawer of water, which is what I was going to go to next, because me and the elder, we spoke about this, directly echoes Joshua 9:21-27, when the Gibeonites tricked Joshua and Israel into a covenant. As punishment, they were made servants forever to the congregation. Salakia, specifically as hewers of wood and drawers of water for the house of power. This suggests that in Deuteronomy 29:11, Moses could be acknowledging not only Israel, but also those strangers, foreigners under the Israelite rule, often in menial service roles who were attached to the nation. They were present, but note the covenant itself was for Israel alone. There you have it. Psalms 147:19-20, Romans 9:4. The strangers were there in subjection, not as heirs of the promise. It says, so how do we reconcile it? The primary covenant was made with the seed of Israel only. So that's a cut to Dave. The stranger in thy camp could refer to Israelites in servitude or foreigners in service. All right. But either way, the wording from the hewer to the drawer is an expression of rank and station from the lowest up to the highest, showing that one in Israel's camp was exempt from being under the Most High's authority. In short, yes, it can apply to poor Israelites serving in menial roles, but it also has ties to actual heathen servants. Either way, it's not about them being part of the covenant blessings, but about their presence under Israel's order when the covenant was reaffirmed. Whew. There you have it. So we'll take that. All right, so that's strike two. Let's continue.
Namely their sons who were left after them in the land, whom the sons of Israel were unable to devote for destruction. From them Solomon raised up forced laborers to this day, but Solomon did not make slaves of the sons of Israel. So the sons of Solomon's servants,
What nation were they from?
let's see, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites.
Okay.
Not only that,
It's Salakia. It started from, we got to go back here. We stopped about right here. Salakia for that.
Right.
keep reading, with Yahweh your God into this oath, which Yahweh your God is cutting with you today, in order that he may establish you today.
Read that over again, Dave.
Let's keep reading, that he may be your God, just as he spoke to you and as he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. This is the key part. Now, not with you alone am I cutting this covenant and this oath. So not with whoever the you is, it is not with that you alone. It's somebody else too. But both with those who stand here with us. Who's standing there with them today in the presence of Yahweh our God? Who's standing there that day?
The rest of 12 tribes of Israel.
Who else?
Just the rest of 12
Let's
tribes.
find out. Let's read it again.
He may not cover
All
anybody
the
else.
men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and the sojourner who is within your camp. So they're also standing there today, the sojourner. So it says, not with you only.
By the way, with us looking up and cross-reference, going into the chat, going into other precepts, looking up words, that also concludes and confirms that when it talks about that stranger, that was really talking about Israel, because we know that the covenant was only given to the Israelites. Right? You can get that in Exodus, you can get that in Romans 9, which that's a direct cut. Okay, Romans 9, because it talks about both covenants, the old covenant and the new covenant. All right, let's continue.
But also with those who stand here with us today. Who stands there with them today? The sojourner who is within their camps, in the presence of Yahweh our God, and with those who are not with us here today. So right there, it says the sojourner stands there with them. It says it is not with them only the covenant is being cut, but also with those who stand there with them, which would mean the sojourner who stands there with them, who is not them, is included in the covenant.
So does that mean you will have to explain, like we read in chat earlier, what about Deuteronomy 23:3? A Moabite and an Ammonite shall not come into the congregation even to the 10th generation. So does that mean that they're too under the covenant? See, you see, these are the things that you have to, like the apostles teaches us. You have to qualify what you're saying. He's not qualifying what he's saying. Like we went into it. We just literally went into it and we showed you how Israelites can be considered strangers. We showed you that in the law.
What Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 25 says. He says, pour out thy fury upon the heathen that know thee not. What he said, he didn't make no cuddle with them, and upon the families call not thy name, for they had eaten of Jacob, devoured him, and consumed him, and had made his habitation desolate. All right, so the covenant is only made with Israel.
That didn't
All right, and
establish that.
Jeremiah specifically cut that mess that you pushing.
It did. It actually did, because that, we read it earlier. It says, now let's go there. Let's go back to that, and then we're gonna close out. This dude is giving me a headache, man. All right, so not Genesis, Salakia, Jeremiah 10 and 25. Pour out thy fury upon the heathen that know thee not. Now let's go into this word, that know thee not. All right. Okay. All right. Yada, which means it says to know, learn to, perceive. All right. Know by experience, to recognize, admit, acknowledge, confess. Do the heathens confess Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua? No, they don't. Do they acknowledge Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua? No, they do not. All right. To know, be acquainted with, to know a person carnally, to know, to have knowledge, be wise. And this is the main point. It says to have knowledge, to be wise. Now, there's a precept that tells you that to get wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, you have to know the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom and knowledge. You see? But the scriptures tells you, when you get Psalms 49, to show you that the heathens, and to prove that they don't know the Lord. Psalms 49:20, man that is in honor and understand it not is like the beasts that perish. Right? Because in order for you to understand, you have to know the fear of the Lord. But if you don't know that, you are likened unto a beast, which when you go to Ecclesiastes 3 and 18, let me highlight that for y'all. It says, I said in my heart concerning the estate of the sons of men, talking about the men of the heathen nations, that the Most High might manifest them, that they might see that they themselves are a beast, because they don't have the fear of Yahweh. It was never given to them. Just like, let me get another one, Isaiah 63. I haven't brought this one out in a long time. Yeah, Isaiah 63 and 18. The people of thy holiness, the Israelites, have possessed it, talking about the land of Jerusalem. But a little while, our adversaries have trodden down thy sanctuary. We are thine. Thou never bearest rule over them, talking about the heathen nations. They were not called by thy name. See? Because if they were under that first covenant, they too would be called by the name. But they were not called by thy name. Let's get this in a different translation. NLT, sometimes it seems as though we never belong to you, as though we have never been known as your people, right? AMP says, we have become like those over whom you have never ruled, like those who were not called by your name. It tells you in the Apocrypha that he set a ruler over the nations, all right, but Israel is his portion. So the other nations, they were never called. All right, we can also get Psalms, what we read in chat, Psalms 147. All right, basic precept, 19 and 20. He showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He have not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. So when you go into these precepts and you get the understanding that, okay, he hasn't, made himself known to the other nations by making them enter into a covenant with him. That's what it means to know him, right? He hasn't given them that intimacy. So now you have to question yourself, what is Deuteronomy, the 29th chapter and the 11th verse on down really talking about? It's talking about the children of Israel, which is something Dave doesn't understand.
No, you did not.
You didn't address anything I said. You just ran somewhere else.
Not at all. Not at all.
And not only that, the mistake you're making is you're
No, you're making a mistake.
Well, you haven't addressed what I said. You just ran to another text
So
to
hold
try
on,
to kind of.
Dave, are you speaking about the mixed multitude?
Now, you hear what he just said? He told the elder that you haven't answered anything that he just said. You just ran to another text. Well, guess what? The scripture says, all right, let's get Psalms 119 and verse 104. We bring this out all the time. It says, through thy precepts I get understanding, therefore I hate every false way. So if we're telling a Christian that, hey, you going off on that, you're coming in a falsehood based off your doctrine, all right? We're going to go through the precepts to get understanding. So the elder did actually answer you with the scripture. He gave you Jeremiah 10 and 25. And you said, well, that doesn't support. No, the reason why you saying it doesn't answer or support what it is that you was bringing out is because you yourself don't understand the scriptures. All right? The words of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua are foreign unto you. So you Christians, you're losing bad, man. Let's close out.
Multitude that came out of Egypt with Israel.
Guys, he
I'm
literally just
speaking
read it.
about the sojourners who were permanent residents who had taken that up with them, and in this context specifically refers to converts. Now, did those come from that mixed multitude? Yes. Were they the whole mixed multitude? No, they were.
Now, we'll end it on this because he mentioned about the sojourner, right? One precept that can cut that, because let's say let's run with his narrative. Let's go to Exodus the 12th chapter. We'll end it on this. All right, so let's run with that whole scenario. Okay. Exodus 12 and 38. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, and even very much cattle. All right, now this was a mixture of, I did a video on this going into what Captain Tazariak stated about the mixed multitude being Israelites, when that's incorrect. It was talking about Egyptians and other nations around them at that time. But when you go down to the ordinance of the Passover, we're going to start at verse 43. Now, let's remember what Dave said. He believes that the heathen nations that were joined themselves, Salakia, to the nation of Israel at the time when they were going through that covenant, they also took part of being under that covenant, which is false. Now, let's understand something. If that be the case, that would mean that all of the high holy days that Yahweh gave the children of Israel in Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, and I think also outlined in the 26th chapter on how they were meant to celebrate it, don't you think that the heathens too was celebrated with us? Well, let's see if that's the case. This is Exodus 12 and 43. It says, and the Lord Yahweh said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof. Let's look up this word stranger. No stranger shall eat thereof. Right? Now we have a different Hebrew word here, which is nakar. And this is referring to, it says, outline of biblical usage, foreign, alien, foreignness, that which is foreign, foreignness, foreign gods, alien, foreigner. Now in the Strongs, it tells us clearly foreign or concretely a foreigner or abstractly heathendom. So it's talking about a literal heathen, right? But watch this. So we understand no heathen, okay, can eat of the Passover. Just told us that in verse 43, based upon looking up that word stranger, right? Let's continue. But every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. A foreigner and an hired servant shall not eat thereof, right? It says, in one's house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth out of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall ye break a bone thereof. And all the congregation of Israel shall keep it, right? Now watch this, verse 48. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee and will keep the Passover to Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised. Wait a minute. It just told us back in 43 that no stranger shall eat thereof. But then it says in verse 48 that if a stranger shall sojourn with thee, they shall keep the Passover. Now let's see if this word stranger is the same word in verse 43. Right? Salaki, I went past it. And we have the Hebrew word gar. So it is not in reference to an actual heathen. This is referencing An Israelite, because remember, Israel were known as strangers. Go back to the law, Leviticus, the 25th chapter. If a stranger or sojourner were to come and live with thee, and your brother be waxing poor, he was considered a stranger, a foreigner that was waxing poor. You can hire him as a hired servant. So there's two different strangers, okay, within verses 43 to verse 48, showing you that's talking about two sets of different people. So again, if the heathens were included under that first covenant, don't you think Yahweh would have allowed for them to take part of the Passover? I'll leave that one for you Christians to answer. So with that, I pray that this lesson was edifying, and Abaratazar, you learned something. And you Christians are taking a hella lot of L's lately, man. And you're going to keep taking L's because you're wrong. All right, so giving all praise, glory, and honor be to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakahakodash. Double honors to the beloved apostles and elders of Great Millstone, better known as GMS, who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, the tabernacle of David. It's on to the next. All right, Lord's will. Shalom.